Good evening. You're watching the news at 6 with me, Ishan Russell, and these are the headlines that we're tracking right now. Japan pledges $12 billion to India to build its first bullet train. The two sides also signed 16 other agreements. Participating nations of the Tapi gas pipeline project reiterate commitment to it. India hopes it will secure country's energy security. Final draft of the global climate deal presented to representatives in Paris. Draft will be adopted if there are no objections at the ministerial meeting. And in a historic first, women exercise their right to franchise in the municipal polls. Almost 980 women also contesting alongside male candidates in Saudi Arabia. A top story right now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his Japanese counterpart Shinzo Abe are in Varanasi, what is being seen as the highlight of the Japanese Prime Minister's three-day India visit. And let's cut across to Varanasi, where they're both participating in the Aarti.
ध्यानं समर्पयामि श्री गणेशाम्बिकाभ्यां नमः पयस्नानम् ॐ पायः पृथिव्यां पाय ओखधे गोपायो दिव्यां तारि पायोधाः पायस्वदेः प्रदिशः तन्तु मह्यं पयस्नानं समर्पयामि मातेश्वरी गणकमलेभ्यो नमः पयस्नानान्ते शुद्धोदकस्नानम् ॐ शुद्धवालः सर्वशुद्धवालो मणिवालस्त आस्मिना श्वेतः श्वेताक्षोरुणस्ते रुद्राय पशुपदय कर्णाजाम अवलिप्ता रुद्राणमो रूपाः पारजन्याः शुद्धोदकस्नानीयं जलं समर्पयामि मातेश्वरीगणकमलेभ्यो नमः गन्ध अक्षतपुष्पमा ॐ त्वां गन्धर्वा अघोरो स्वामिन्द्र स्वां बृहस्पति स्वामोखधे सोमोरा बिल्वाणक्ष्मादमुच्यता अखण्डामि मादं तस्वप्रि अधोखदा अस्तोखद स्वभान विभ्राणविष्ठयामति जोजानमिन्द्रदेह ओखधेः प्रतिमोदधवां पुष्पवदे प्रसोवरेः अथवा इव सजित्वारेर्पेरुधा पारैष्णवः गन्धाक्षरपुष्पाणिं समर्पयामि दुर्वाङ्कुरां काण्डात्काण्डात्प्रारोहन्तीं पारुगस्परे एवानो दुर्भे प्रदरुषः रसतेन च नमः फिल्मिने च कवचिने च नमः पर्मिने च परुते च नमः श्रुताय च श्रुतसेना.
And earlier, the ties between India and Japan got a boost as Prime Ministers of Asia's second and third largest economies met in Delhi and held talks on a range of bilateral issues. Now, Japan has pledged not only $12 billion in soft funding for India's first bullet train, but also earmarked another $12 billion for the Make in India initiative.
$12 billion, that's the amount Japan will give India to build the country's first bullet train. The deal to build a high-speed train line between Mumbai and Ahmedabad gives Japan an early lead over China. The country is still conducting feasibility studies for high-speed trains on other parts of the Indian rail network.
We greatly appreciate Prime Minister Abe's extraordinary package of approximately $20 billion and technical assistance on very easy terms for this project. This enterprise will launch a revolution in Indian railways and speed up India's journey into the future.
The two sides also signed defense deals under which they will share technology, equipment and military information, even though the much anticipated sale of Japanese aircraft in a deal worth about $1.1 billion was not concluded. On the civil nuclear technology front too, while they agreed to work towards cooperation, the two sides stopped short of signing an agreement. This was attributed to outstanding technical differences. Japan has been demanding additional non-proliferation guarantees from India before it exports nuclear reactors.
The memorandum we signed on civil nuclear energy cooperation is more than just an agreement for commerce and clean energy. It is signing symbol of a new level of mutual confidence and strategic partnership in the cause of peaceful and secure world.
Japan has also earmarked $12 billion for the Make in India initiative, and for the first time, Japan will import cars from India. Maruti Suzuki and Japanese companies will manufacture in India before exporting the cars to Japan. Earlier, Abe met President Pranab Mukherjee at Rashtrapati Bhavan.
All these agreements are intended towards strengthening the infrastructural facilities in India so that industrial growth can take place and employment opportunities can rise. But there is also a subtle message to China to resolve conflicts with India so that it can take part and benefit from India's growth. Akhilesh Suman with camera person Shiv Kumar in Delhi for Sabha television.
Let's go across to our correspondent Akhilesh Suman, who's been covering this visit of the Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. And Akhilesh, as you were pointing out over there in your piece to camera, that there is a certain message for China on the growing closeness between India and Japan. And that really is probably the undercurrent of this entire visit.
Yeah, naturally, if you go through the whole statement, gamut of the statement in the last, even Prime Minister Narendra Modi uttered the same thing about South China Sea. Even the Foreign Secretary S. Jaishankar uttered the same thing about South China Sea. Though it is a reiteration of the fact that it could have been avoided also. And if you go to the whole infrastructural cooperation between India and Japan, China is also the contender in the same field where Japan is committing itself, be it high-speed train, be it shipyard development, be it roads, be everything. China wants to compete with Japan and wants to take primacy in India. But once India today announced cooperation in almost 13 projects in India in different parts of the country, other than the defense cooperation. So you can understand the whole message is to China that if you want to come and if you want to take benefit of India's growth strategy, you have to come to us with a different outlook, and that different outlook will be diminishing the political confrontation either bilateral or at multi-level fora.
Yeah, and Akhilesh, now talking about the fact that we're talking about the second and the third largest economies in Asia, both India and Japan are at a very interesting crossroads where Japan's economy is slowing down and India's economy is really booming, and Japan looking to invest a lot in India, isn't it?
Yeah, actually everyone's economy is slowing down and India's economy is growing because India needs everything from the world. Because India has so many green fields in its own territories. If you have to develop your roads, you have to develop your bridges, you have to develop your railway infrastructure, you have to develop aviation, you have to develop ports, everything you have to develop. And that is why we consider that India's economy is booming, and that is why everyone wants to come to India and wants to be part of Make in India. But India's point is that you have to diminish the political differences. And Japan, other than the nuclear cooperation between India and Japan, I think there is no difference between the two countries on any other issues, be it Security Council reform, be it climate change or even WTO. So I think Japan suits India in that way. Only consideration is the pricing consideration, the time consideration, because everyone feels that China may be giving the good prices, Japan may be giving not so good prices, and time taken by Japanese may be more than the time taken by Chinese. So it is almost a situation that you can bargain with both China and Japan, and much has to bargain by Chinese whether it wants to take advantage from India or not.
All right, Akhilesh, we leave it over there. Akhilesh will be, of course, tracking this development as far as the Japanese Prime Minister's visit to India is concerned for us. Moving on now, the blame game between the government and the opposition is far from over on the issue of disruptions of the winter session of Parliament. Now, while the government is keen on getting the goods and services tax bill passed in this session, the main opposition, the Congress's top brass, will brainstorm on Sunday to finalize the party's strategy for the remainder of the session.
With just 8 sittings left before the winter session ends, the government is running out of time to get the Parliament's nod on its key reform measure, the GST bill. Proceedings in both houses have been disrupted time and again on one issue or the other. The Congress, though, claims that the disruptions have nothing to do with the National Herald case involving both its party president and vice president.
अगर ये लोकसभा राज्यसभा नहीं चल रही है तो उसका मुख्य कारण हम लोग नहीं हैं। स्वयं जेटली जी के शैलजा जी के प्रकरण में जिस प्रकार से बयान दिया उसकी वजह से गतिरोध हुआ 3 दिन के लिए। उसके बाद वीके सिंह जी ने दलितों के अपमानजनक शब्दों का उपयोग किया, उसके लिए हुआ। उसके बाद लोकसभा में वीरेंद्र सिंह जी जो सांसद हैं भाजपा के चंदौली के, जिस प्रकार के नीच शब्दों का उपयोग उन्होंने किया, उसकी वजह से हम लोगों को दिक्कत आती है। क्यों नहीं इस बात को आप समझते हैं? क्या गतिरोध पैदा करने के लिए वे जिम्मेदार नहीं है?
The ruling party BJP, however, says the Congress finds itself increasingly isolated in its protest inside Parliament.
I think the Congress party has lost its nerve, has lost its balance, and is feeling completely cornered and is feeling completely isolated, and they have to blame themselves. They cannot blame either the government or the BJP, and the sooner this wisdom dawns on them, the sooner they participate in the legislative process in Parliament, they'll be able to recover a part of their lost prestige. If they continue to hold Parliament to ransom, the public will consider this as their revenge tactics for being made accountable to the court of law in this country.
Meanwhile, the prospects of a forward movement on GST appear on the horizon, with the government giving some proposals to the Congress, expecting a response by Monday. Sources say a meeting of the Congress top brass will be held on Sunday to take a call on the proposals regarding the GST bill and also the party's future strategy in Parliament. Vishal Daya's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
Now, India and Pakistan's foreign secretaries will meet next month in the national capital, New Delhi. The announcement comes just days after External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj met her Pakistan counterpart Sartaj Aziz in Islamabad. Both had pledged their commitment to re-engage in bilateral talks. The foreign secretaries will focus on the details of the newly announced comprehensive bilateral dialogue. Pakistani advisor on foreign affairs Sartaj Aziz said that they will decide on the modalities and the schedule of the dialogue. All issues, including Kashmir and terrorism, would be part of the peace talks. Political leaders have welcomed the move.
भारत पाकिस्तान के रिश्ते अच्छे हों, इसकी कोशिश भारत की तरफ से रहती है। जो व्यवधान आया है वो हमारे तरफ से नहीं आया था। हम उम्मीद करते हैं कि भारत पाकिस्तान के रिश्ते अच्छे होंगे और आतंकवाद पर हम लोग जीरो टॉलरेंस की नीति के साथ आगे बढ़ रहे हैं और आगे बढ़ेंगे।
India-Pakistan talks are destined to fail. The reason for that is the Pakistani defense establishment continues to belabor under the humiliation of the 1971 defeat. Till the time the Pakistani security and strategic establishment does not emancipate itself from that mindset, no dialogue, no engagement between India and Pakistan will ever succeed.
पाकिस्तान के साथ वार्ता करने के हम समर्थक हैं। सरकार स्पष्ट करे कि क्या पिछले 1.5 वर्षों में 2 वर्षों में पाकिस्तान के एटीट्यूड में, भारत के प्रति रवैये में कोई फर्क महसूस भारत सरकार ने किया है?
I think that the government should come out very clear and clean on it. Otherwise, it somehow gets we somehow get the feeling that when nothing changed substantially, how we have suddenly woken up to this new kind of avatar from both the sides.
Now, Assam Chief Minister Tarun Gogoi will be the Congress Party's chief ministerial candidate in the 2016 Assam State Assembly elections. Congress Vice President Rahul Gandhi made the announcement in Guwahati today. Speaking to media persons, Rahul said that the party has full confidence in the leadership of Gogoi and the Assam Pradesh Congress Committee. On the issue of the alliance with other parties, Rahul said that the decision would be taken by state party leaders at a later stage. Time now to take a look at other national news stories and nationwide. Mumbai Police Commissioner Ahmed Javed has been appointed India's ambassador to Saudi Arabia. 1980 batch IPS officer Javed is scheduled to retire on 31st January 2016. He will be the fourth IPS officer to be appointed as India's envoy to Saudi Arabia in an assignment which is traditionally the domain of the Indian Foreign Service. Tamil Nadu Chief Minister Jayalalitha has announced compensation of 4 lakh rupees each to the kin of the 23 people killed in the worst floods witnessed by the state in a century. Drowning, wall collapse and electrocution were the major reasons listed for the deaths of the 23 people. The Delhi government has decided to bring all auto rickshaws and taxis under the ambit of one app called Pucho, facilitating commuters to book them through smartphones. This will be done on a trial basis during the 15-day trial of the odd-even scheme starting January 1st, 2016. There are around 80,000 auto rickshaws and 30,000 taxis plying in the national capital. The app will be launched on the 22nd of December. In his first public appearance since taking over as the Chief Justice of India, Justice T.S. Thakur called for improvement of judicial infrastructure in the country, suggesting that the legal format of arbitration process must undergo a change. The Chief Justice said a lack of professionalism by arbitrators was bringing a bad name to the country. The government has imposed import duties for 5 years on stainless steel imports from China, the European Union and the United States. This as it tries to protect local companies suffering due to unfair competition. Imports from South Korea, South Africa, Taiwan and Thailand will also be taxed. Time for us to take a very quick break. On the other side, the overnight siege in Kabul ends with the security forces killing all 3 Taliban militants. Details on the other side.
Today we will discuss the Supreme Court judgment on acid attack victims.
और कम से कम इसकी वजह से विक्टिम को इलाज मिलेगा।
बहुत सी ऐसी सर्वाइवर्स हैं जिनको कंपनसेशन अभी वो 3 लाख रुपए भी नहीं मिला है। But at least acid victims get some support, and I mean it's fantastic.
Watch Law of the Land Saturday at 6:30 p.m. on Rajya Sabha television.
Welcome back. You're watching the news at 6. Now, all 4 partners of the ambitious $10 billion gas pipeline between Turkmenistan and India have reiterated their commitment for its early implementation. Leaders of all 4 countries, Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan and India, said this in Ashgabat, where they're attending the Peace and Neutrality Conference. The groundbreaking ceremony of the Tapi gas pipeline will be held at Mary on Sunday to start work on the Turkmenistan leg of the pipeline.
India, Pakistan, Turkmenistan and Afghanistan have renewed their commitment for early construction of the nearly 1,800-kilometer long $10 billion gas pipeline project. The pipeline will carry natural gas from Turkmenistan to India via Afghanistan and Pakistan.
Tomorrow, we will flag off the Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, Tapi gas pipeline, which we both recognize to be a key pillar of our economic engagement and which is in consonance with the particular emphasis that Turkmenistan puts on economic aspect of neutrality.
The project has been in the works for 5 years now, but has not taken off due to lack of an international consortium to build it. Turkmenistan has decided to lead the consortium with 85% stake, while India has agreed to acquire 5% stake. Partner countries are discussing the transit fee, pricing formula and other issues. Both Afghanistan and Pakistan agreed that the TAPI project would become center of trade and transit.
Pakistan is promoting other regional energy and infrastructure projects, including the Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India gas pipeline project, Kasa 1000 electricity project, the Kunar power project, and connectivity projects with Afghanistan.
The groundbreaking ceremony of the over 200-kilometer long leg of the pipeline in Turkmenistan will be held in Mari on Sunday. Securing reliable and cost-effective sources of energy in India's neighborhood is important for securing the country's energy security, as the country imports nearly 80% of its crude and gas. Turkmenistan has the world's fourth largest reserve of natural gas. Construction of the TAPI pipeline and another proposed pipeline between Iran, Pakistan and India would go a long way in diversifying and securing sources of energy for India to meet its challenges of rapid growth. With camera person Saroj and Krishnan Tripathi in Asgabad, Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Now, the United Nations and the French organizers of the climate summit have reached an agreement on the final draft of a global climate deal. Conference President Laurent Fabius presented the draft text to representatives from nearly 200 nations a short while ago in Paris. It will be adopted only if there are no objections from representatives.
Positions have narrowed enormously. I think there's a great sense that the consensus that was needed is there now. And we'll just have to see how these final hours play out.
Cautious optimism at the climate summit in Paris as negotiators aim to seal a landmark accord to transform the world's fossil fuel-driven economy. Conference Summit President Laurent Fabius presented the final draft text at the ministerial meeting. Ahead of the meeting, the draft text was translated into 6 official UN languages.
Toutes les conditions sont réunies pour obtenir un accord universel ambitieux. Et probablement, les observateurs le reconnaissent, les conditions n'ont jamais été aussi favorables, si je puis dire.
There were extensive bilaterals yesterday, and then late this morning, I say late this morning, maybe I should say late last night, early this morning, a proposal came forward, new proposals for the text, and the president of the COP, Laurent Fabius, has signed off on that, and that will now go to the Committee de Paris, as they call it, for governments to see the whole new proposals in great detail.
It will not be a done deal until the final draft agreement is accepted and adopted after the ministerial meeting. UN Chief Ban Ki-moon meanwhile held diplomatic talks with several ministers, including Environment Minister Prakash Javadekar on Friday.
A lot of discussion whether the long-term goal will give a clear signal to phase out fossil fuels by mid-century, or is there a risk that it will be much later? There have been also a lot of arguments about the financing package because it was quite clear that for the US and for Europe it's such a big step forward, which is hardly to believe that they will do it.
There are several points of contention still, including on differentiation, transparency and climate financing. Rich nations have been demanding a single system of measuring, reporting and verifying the commitments countries make as part of this agreement, which is crucial to the US. With just hours left to hammer out a global climate pact, the iconic Eiffel Tower in Paris lit up with the message, "No Plan B." Will a solution be too little, too late? Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Now, the siege in Kabul ended early morning on Saturday after hours of gunfights between security personnel and Taliban fighters. All 3 Taliban fighters and a Spanish security officer were killed.
Security forces in Afghanistan suppressed a suicide attack on a guest house near the Spanish embassy in Kabul. 3 Taliban militants were killed after hours of intermittent gunfighting and explosions. The fighting lasted into the early hours of Saturday. The attack in the heavily protected part of the Afghan capital also killed a Spanish security officer and killed or wounded 5 Afghan police.
خارجی و داخلی در آپارتمان‌های امجوار و در خود اینمی آپارتمانی که میمانخانه اسپانوی بود گیر مانده بود که ما وارم نجات دادیم. صرف 2 نفر اسپانوی که یکیش زخمی و یکیش کشته شده و متاسفانه بگوییم که 4-5 نفر از پلیس کابل شهید و زخمی شدن و 9 نفر از هموطنان ما زخمی شده که زخمی به وقت و زمانش به شفاخانه انتقال شد و ما تانستیم کم از کم تعداد 47 نفر خارجی و داخلی را نجات بدیم.
This attack is the latest in a series of attacks on foreign targets in Kabul. It began with a suicide attacker detonating a car bomb near the guest house in the embassy area, creating enough diversion for 3 gunmen to take up positions and open fire on security forces.
یک گرم است که فقط میگه ساختمان تکان خورد. باز بیرون دوده برآمدم که تو با یه خاک دو دست که چی میکنی؟ باز شروع شد دیگه جنگ شروع شد. تا صبح بود قریب ساعتای 12 بجه یک جنگ شده شد.
The attack also came on the heels of an attack on the Kandahar airport, again carried out by the Taliban. At least 50 civilians and security personnel were killed in that attack. It is also a grim reminder of the security situation in Afghanistan just days after President Ashraf Ghani returned from a regional peace conference in Pakistan, where he sought support to revive peace talks that had stalled last year. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Now, women in Saudi Arabia are voting in the country's municipal election for the first time ever. Women have been allowed to contest the polls as well. The decision to allow the right to franchise to women was taken by the late King Abdullah. The results are expected later on Saturday.
I think we're proceeding gradually into integrating the woman and giving her all of her rights to participate, fully participate in the society.
It's my first time to elect in our country, and actually I'm coming here to support one of my friends. I believe in our future, I believe in our rules as a female, supporting our country.
One small step, but a giant leap for the women in Saudi Arabia. For the first time in the history of the country, women have been allowed to exercise their franchise in municipal elections. There is much more to rejoice on the path to gender equality in the country, with women also being allowed to stand as candidates. 978 women have registered as candidates alongside almost 6,000 men.
يعني عندنا كتجربة أولى 130,000 من اللي سجلوا في الدورة هذه 24% من أعداد المسجلين في الدورة هذه. أتصور أنه رقم جيد بالنسبة كمشاركة أولى للنساء.
Reports so far suggest a large turnout of women voters. Even though the municipal elections will bestow them with only a few powers, it's still a milestone for Saudi women. Female candidates were asked to speak behind a partition during campaigning or be represented by a man.
في إقبال كبير من المرشحات وهذا يدل على أنه إن شاء الله راح نشوف ناخبة يعني مرشحة يعني أعضاء مجالس بلدية من الأخوات السيدات وأنا أتصور أنه وارد جدا وبنسبة كبيرة. إحنا عندنا ضوابط شرعية تمنع وجود صورة المرأة. خلينا نكون صريح يعني واضح.
Results are expected late on Saturday. This is the third time in the history that Saudis have gone to polls. There were no elections in the 40 years between 1965 and 2005. Late King Abdullah is the one who approved the decision to allow women to vote, a decision seen by many as part of his legacy. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Time now to take a look at other international news stories in Global Buzz. Defense Minister Manohar Parrikar has concluded his 4-day visit to the US. The US welcomed Parrikar's visit and called it a sign of deepening defense ties between the two countries. Parrikar held wide-ranging talks with top leaders on several regional and global security issues. He also held closed-door discussions with his American counterpart, Ash Carter. At least 34 people were found shot dead near Burundi's capital, Bujumbura, on Sunday. This comes just a day after an unidentified group carried out several coordinated attacks on 3 military installations in the country. The army said 12 attackers were killed. 20 others have been arrested. An investigation is underway. The Ukrainian government's yearly report presentation ended up in a brawl inside parliament on Friday. Fighting broke out after A member of President Petro Poroshenko's parliamentary bloc physically picked up the Prime Minister, Yastinik, and pulled him from the podium. Yastinik was defending his government's record. The incident has exposed deep divisions in the pro-Europe coalition. New Zealand is one step closer on finalising its new national flag. They've picked a blue and black design with a silver fern as the preliminary winner in a referendum. The runner-up is a similar-looking red, white and blue design. Final results will be announced on Tuesday after the overseas votes also counted. The move comes after Prime Minister John Key said that the country's current flag is too similar to the Australian flag. Well, that's it from us. Goodbye.